Oh god, not another tier list video. Guys, I promise this one is different from the ones that you have seen. As you know, I am the pug guy. I pug all of my keys, and I've even made a series of me trying to pug all the healers to 3k IO. So for this tier list, I'm going to take the POV of a pugger, someone who pugs their keys, and try to make a tier list of all the healers and their performance, their kit, everything that they have at their disposal to see which healer is just the best fit for pugging in the War Within. So it's going to be kind of a power balance, a power leveling tier list, while also just throwing in the added element of, okay, so I pug all my keys. Where does my healer stand? Let's just kick things off, guys. I'm going to get this one literally out of the way. We all know Resto Shaman already has a top tier kit just designed for pugging keys. They have a lot of reactionary spells. Their cooldowns are very reactionary. As someone who can speak from experience, that bodes so well when your DPS are a bunch of randoms that just love to take unnecessary damage. Also, having Healing Stream Totem just be where it's at with Totemic Shaman and also the Farseer Shamans as well, kind of being smart healing to an extent. It does kind of help in a pug environment because the damage is so random, it feels like at points, that the healing also kind of being smart, healing the people that need it as they take the damage, can help out a ton. Yeah, they just have the kit. We're moving on. We're getting to the healers that you guys came here for. And what prompted me to actually make this video is a comment that one of you guys left down in the comments below of one of my videos talking about the Disc Priest changes. If you don't know, Disc Priest did see some pretty nice buffs, specifically in a Mythic Plus environment, and they used to be put down here in the do not play category, but you guys, y'all know me. I would never recommend you guys to not play a healer. That's just against what I stand by. But these buffs are looking very good. Playing my Disc Priest before and after the buffs is so noticeable. However, as a Disc Priest, especially now when you're going Void Weaver and you're even more ramp focused, it can feel at times that no matter what you're doing as the healer, you're always somewhere in your ramp. Whether you're literally in the middle of it doing all of your explosive spells, trying to ramp up, do a bunch of healing now, or you're prepping for the next like 10 seconds to come, getting smite spam going, trying to reduce the cooldown of your ramp, it just feels like you're always ramping. And like I said in the shaman section, when damage is just so unpredictable, it's so hard for me to recommend a healer just designed like Disc Priest for a pug environment unless they are performing exceptionally to the point where their healing is so good you can just kind of like Oonga boonga your way to the top of this tier list. So for that reason, it's going to land here in the strong but hard category. We know Disc Priest is hard. Nothing's ever going to change that unless they give it a full-on rework, but especially hard in the sense of being a pug healer. It feels like it's lacking some of the tools to push it to the top, some of those reactionary tools. It does have a lot of changes that are coming its way in the War Within, like the change to Rapture, for example, just beefing up your next 3 shields. If someone takes a big slam of damage, all of a sudden you can Rapture them, get a giant shield on them. So it is a lot better in that sense. It does have more tools than it used to, I would argue, but it's a healer that feels like it's designed for a more organized group experience. However, like I said, don't think that I'm saying not to play it. If you're someone who can pug with Disc Priest and you enjoy doing so, absolutely do it and wear it as a flex. It is a flex, keep killing it. But don't get me wrong, Disc Priest stocks are absolutely rising, especially with these recent buffs. And speaking of rising stocks, now is the perfect time to thank this video's sponsor, TSM. TSM is for everyone, whether you're like me and just need enough gold for consumables and repairs, or you're sitting near gold cap flipping millions of gold each month. TSM can help you manage your auctions with ease, making sure you're not underselling your items or overpaying for your purchases. It can also be used to push your professions to the next level by helping you see what's most profitable to craft. TSM now has new premium packages that help you elevate your gold making by tapping into TSM's vast database and helping you make informed decisions on what to buy and when to sell. Make sure and use my link down in the description below to get 15% off your first purchase of the premium TSM package. Thank you so much, TSM, for supporting the channel. Now let's get back to the video. Now, Preservation Evoker is, comically allergic to pug environments. If you've ever logged into your Preservation Evoker and played this spec, you know that it's just designed not for pugs, or at least the pugs that I'm getting in my groups. Having frontal heals or positional, locational heals, whatever you want to call it, it does hurt your pug experience. However, one of the biggest drawbacks historically, or at least in its short history of Preservation Evoker, has been its lack of immediate shock healing. Yes, you do have Verdant Embrace, but especially in a pug environment, a lot of the times the damage that they're going to be taking that does those big chunks of damage is going to be from like swirlies or something that they stood in. So having to first echo them, or the person that you need to spot heal or shock heal in that instant, and then Verdant Embrace yourself in order to shock heal them, it takes two globals. So, you know, it's just unreliably a single global shock heal. However, their hero talent tree, Flame Shaper, really gives them an explosive tool. Not only does it fill this void that I've always said is just existent in their structure, their design, but it also kind of acts as like a mini cooldown. Like think like your Beacon of Virtues or like your Shayloon's gift, like those cooldowns that can just like do a slam of healing, but they're not like your main cooldown that you plan pools around. It just feels insane. Engulf snaps so much healing on your single target in a shock in an instant, and it really makes this class feel a lot better. Not to mention their heals are just so explosive right now. It feels like they're healing a ton, like a ton. So that also bodes pretty well. So I would recommend, if you're someone who's on the fence about Evoker, yes, you still have those positional drawbacks, but they are less of a concern. They're a little bit further back in your mind than they used to be, just because of how much raw healing you're doing. Is this a pug carry? You know what? The whole definition that I'm going by, a pug carry, is someone that has the tools necessary to heal a pug environment very easily, you know, in a vacuum, and also does enough healing to where they can just oonga boonga with healing and just heal through any mechanics and damage. I think Evoker has that right now. They do so much healing. And yeah, I just think their toolkit, the hero talents, also solve some of the questions that this spec has asked. So I do think it actually is in a very good spot for a pug environment. You also bring Lust, so you're going to be kind of sought after in some keys. So I guess if that matters to you at all. But let's go ahead and move on to Resto Druid. Now, Resto Druid, despite being here with Disc Priest in terms of difficulty, like you feel like you're always ramping for damage to come. The difference is you don't ramp around set cooldowns. Like you're not ramping around a set button like Mind Blast or Shadow Fiend or Mindbender like Disc Priest does. Instead, you're always ramping with your rotational hot. So you're always like spamming around life blooms, like reapplying those, reapplying your efflorescence, wild growthing. Yes, that is kind of a a cooldown, but it's very short when it's a lot shorter than a minute. And then also your rejuves, you're always spreading around hots, prepping for damage to come. So it does have a bit more tools for a pug environment, as long as you, the player, the pilot, are on top of keeping these hots applied. You likely will have an easier time than with Disc Priest. Not to mention, they do have a lot more options in terms of bouncing a health bar up from like 50% to a bit higher. So they do have a lot more instant shock healing. You have Nature's Swiftness on a regrowth, which, not to mention, regrowth has seen a lot of buffs coming into the War Within. It feels very good to cast. It feels very good to just spam regrowths as long as you have your hot coverage good and down pat. If big damage is coming in, you can just regrowth on all of your allies, and it feels very powerful. So for that reason, they are still as proactive as they always have been, but a bit more reactive than they used to be. Not to mention, I didn't even mention this, but double Swiftmend, 2 charges of Swiftmend feels excellent. Also, the Convoke changes, the Convoke buffs, has made that feel good. And also, Incarnation still feels excellent with the whole Treant, cycling Treant rotation. Resto Druid also can just hard carry and damage if you're given the opportunity. However, in a pug environment, you are, just to put it simply, you're just given that opportunity a lot less. Resto Druid, you see it put up massive numbers in like more organized groups, like maybe the MDI, for example, because they don't take as much unnecessary damage. So they can plan their hots, like apply their hots for the necessary damage that they know and expect is going to come in. And then they can swap into like cat stance or just cast a bunch of starfires or really not get punished for not constantly healing. Whereas in a pug environment, like I said, you're always ramping for that damage that warrior is gonna stand in. So for that reason, it's not necessarily up here in pug carry. It does have a lot more tools than Disc Priest, but it just does not have the exact throughput and the exact ease to get that throughput as Resto Shaman and Preservation Evoker. Next up, let's move on to Mistweaver Monk. And now, luckily, Mistweaver Monk only has one hero talent tree, and that hero talent tree is just so solid. It not only provides you a really solid cooldown that's great in a pug environment, it does solid healing, but it also allows you to shield your allies and just add a little bit extra padding, which just adds up and makes pugging and healing a pug environment that much easier. It feels a lot like how Resto Shamans add health to your party with their healing. Not to mention, tank healing once Mythic Plus opens up is gonna be a bit of a struggle and a little bit hard to adapt to. And luckily, Strength of the Black Ox gives you a pretty simple incentive to cast one of your most powerful hot onto your tank and keep that applied as often as you can. And not to mention, with the removal of a bunch of talents like Clouded Focus, yes, Clouded Focus didn't make its way into our Mythic Plus build. However, it did affect how they could balance things like Vivify. And now that Vivify has a lot more of its power baked into Vivacious Vivification, Mistweavers have a incredible shock heal once every 10 seconds with that proc. They also just got a big boost to their maintenance healing, that healing that you do outside of your cooldowns or before you actually need to spot heal someone in Crane style. I mean, just having more mastery procs kicked up left and right just adds more healing on top of the Ancient Teachings healing that you're already doing. So it feels a lot less invasive to your rotation to stop to spot heal someone, which is very good in a Mythic Plus environment, making this feel a lot more fluid and a lot easier of a spec to pick up. Not to mention, one of the strengths in a pug environment of Mistweaver, why it's so good when it is good, is because of their short cooldown rotation. A lot of these other healers excel in that as well, and it's really highlighted or emphasized when they're powerful. But having Chi-Ji at 1 minute, Shayloon's Gift at a max of 40 seconds, and then now Celestial Conduit into the mix at a minute and a half, these are all three exceptional cooldowns that some are stronger than the others. Like Chi-Ji's obviously stronger than the other two. However, they all three provide so much healing and coverage to the party whenever you have them up. So you have a lot of tools. You don't necessarily have a traditional tank external, but neither does Resto Shaman, and it's incredible at healing a tank. So is Mistweaver, like I said earlier with Enveloping Mist, but Life Cocoon can get the job done to an extent, and it also is so good at saving your DPS. If you see that your Shadow Priest is about to just get nuked, just give them a giant bubble and they should be okay. But do they do enough throughput right now? Because that's usually their driving factor of being in the pug carry category. I don't quite think so. I don't quite think so. They're very, very close, but it's easily in the discussion for being in this category because of how good it's actually feeling and how many tools you have on your tool belt compared to what you used to have. You also have a melee ranged kick that is on such a short cooldown. You have an AoE stop and AoE stun. Like, you have so many tools as a Mistweaver to just kind of carry. You're just not quite to the level of Resto Shaman in terms of tools, and you're just not quite to the level of Preservation in terms of just doing enough healing to carry. But now let's move on to Holy Priest. Now, Holy Priest is, it's in a pretty rough spot. I'm not gonna lie, it's in a pretty rough spot. And in my opinion, one of the things that made Holy Priest a lot more manageable in Dragonflight in a pug environment was its access to Smoldering Seedling of all things. I was probably one of the only people playing that. But one of the hardest parts of mastering and getting used to Holy Priest in a pug environment in specific is that you feel like just having the one major cooldown isn't enough for these pugs. You guys know how pugs do. You guys know how these pug tanks pool. They go crazy often, and only having access to really apotheosis is a big struggle. But they do have a ton of reactionary tools. Holy Word Serenity having 2 charges of that is exceptional. All of their damage changes during Dragonflight are still good. They're still up there, not quite Resto Druid tier in my experience in terms of damage. So you can't just hardcore like nuke a boss to make it that much easier, to make it last a lot less time, make it easier on yourself, the healer. And you do still kind of struggle with AoE healing in a 5-man party. Although they've buffed things like Prayer of Healing, trying to get you to go these 5-man healing spells in a 5-man healing environment, they're still not to the level of you taking them, honestly. But since your main rotation, like the rotation that you do, like 80% of the time is just playing around Lightweaver, casting Flash Heal, Flash Heal, Heal, Flash Heal, Flash Heal, Heal. You're basically whack-a-moling health bars. And not to mention going Archon Holy Priest, you now do have Halo as like a pseudo cooldown. It does like so much healing, so much damage, and just amps up your healing. So it's still a great option. You also can go Oracle if you need a couple more tools and don't just need that raw output. But that's a lot harder. I don't think Oracle's worth mentioning in this video, a pug-friendly video. But right now, Holy Priest it feels like it's just undertuned, and I think a lot of that is just in its 5-man healing spells. But they have gotten a lot of strides in the right direction. They also do have a pretty good tier set. It's not like one of the best healer tier sets coming into Season 1, but it just feels like they are lacking. I'm sure you can watch any other healer content creators' videos, and I'm sure they would put them down low as well. They just feel like they're missing something. And I think a lot of the reworks from Dragonflight were to their damage spells and damage rotation and kit. And I think they're pretty due for one for their healing kit. And not to mention, I think one thing that's pretty safe to point out is the lack of kick and the lack of B-res or lust really, really hurts both of these specs, especially in a pug environment, and especially for something like Disc Priest, who is so reliant on knowing when the damage is coming in. Just sitting there watching a cast go off is the most frustrating thing as Priest, especially when you feel like you just don't have the tools to top up that person in time for them to die to the next instance of damage. Now, Mistweaver also, it does have a kick, but it doesn't have B-Res or Lust, but it just has so much other utility like stopping casts to where it just feels like it has a bit more in that category than Priest. It's just so important to note that, like, if anyone from Blizzard is watching this, just give these guys a kick. I mean, come on, come on. I'm fighting for you, Priest. Please don't dislike this video because you ended up down here on my personal tier list. I'm fighting for you guys. But let's move on to the final healer in Holy Paladin. Now, Holy Paladin is pretty similar to Resto Shaman in the fact that they are doing a lot of healing and they have a lot of utility. However, the utility that Paladin has is slightly different. So, for example, Resto Shaman has a ton of utility to stop cast. They have a short cooldown range kick. They have Capacitor Totem. They have Thunderstorm, kind of like your Mistweaver Druid. They have that similar rotation of stoppages, but Holy Paladin doesn't have that. They have a single target stun, they have a single target kick, and like what, blinding light, so they don't have quite as many ways to control mobs, which is more so the pug friendly utility that you're looking for. However, they do have excellent like defensive utility. I guess you could argue that kicks and stops are defensive utility, but they have a ton of defensive utility in things like Aura Mastery, Devotion, Aura, Overflowing Light. Like, they have so many ways to kind of extend your pug party's health bar. So it does kind of match in that sense with Shaman, but to a greater extent. So there are reasons why these two are kind of being talked about a lot right now, why these three are all three being talked about right now. And one of the reasons for Holy Paladin is it's in such a pug friendly position, in my opinion, with its current healing profile. So as you know, Glimmer was completely removed, and now they are going way back into that like shock healing profile, which, as I've mentioned so much in this video, is so good to just have more of that oomph into your shock heals. Because now if an ally stands in a swirly, they just have more instant healing to top them up before that second instance of damage. And with Eternal Flame also just being a stronger Word of Glory in their Herald of the Sun build, it's such an excellent profile because it does more shock healing than a Word of Glory, while also leaving behind a little bit of a hot to catch the next instance of damage that party member takes. So Holy Paladin has so many good tools. They have so many good short cooldowns like Beacon of Virtue. Like I said, their single target spot healing is insane. And if you are caught in a moment where you need AoE healing, just pop Beacon of Virtue. It's almost free. The uptime on that is like disgusting. So converting your single target spells into AoE cleaving just feels amazing in a PUG environment, because you're gonna have that one DPS player that you just need to slam heals into and also gain external value elsewhere. It feels very good. However, I think, like I said, one of the reasons why priests are feeling a bit lackluster is just their inability to control the mobs. Yes, part of being a pug carry is planning around your party's stupidity, and that doesn't just mean healing back incoming damage that you couldn't have prevented in any way, but it's also knowing or having the ability to prevent damage from happening, and like lacking good ways to stop like multiple casts from going off in a pinch, just lacking that utility. I mean, hell, even Evoker has 2 different ways, Tail Swipe and Wing Buffet. So lacking that is a pretty big thorn in your side when you're walking into a pug environment and you just don't know if you can rely on your party. So for that reason, I think it's this and Mistweaver and honestly Resto Druid are all very close to being pug carries, but I just don't think this can carry a pug group quite to the extent of something like Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman is just in an echelon kind of its own, barely matched by Preservation Evoker, and I think Holy Paladin is very, very close. But like I said, it just lacks that like offensive, like AoE crowd control type spell. And yes, you do make up for it for like defensives or externals on the back end. But yeah, it just feels like in a pug environment, you feel that lack of an AoE stop more often than you'll feel, that you have all these tools that you can use at any point to prevent some incoming damage. Instead, Resto Shamans fully prevent it, So for that reason, I do think this is a pretty safe place to leave this list. I also just want to point out that there are no healers in the do not play category. Also, that does not mean that these are like worse or you should feel bad about playing these. No, just in fact, wear that with a badge of honor if you're maining a priest right now. And wait, that's weird. It's weird that it says that. But also, guys, before we dip out of here, I do want to give another thank you to the sponsor of this video. This is this channel's first ever sponsor, so thank you so much, TSM, for showing that you believe in me and believe in this channel. And thank you guys for showing that same support to me by hitting the like button, commenting down below. You guys comment the nicest things, and it drives me to keep on going, keep on making videos. So thank you guys so much. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of this list, how you would change it, and let me know what you guys want to see next. Is there a video that no one's making right now and you need to know some information? Let me know that, and I'd be so happy to make that for you. But guys, I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, take care.